I am going to be teaching on how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide integers, and going over the integer rules. First, I'm going to start off with adding integers. So we know if we have the same sign and we're adding integers with the same sign, we have to add and keep the sign. So we know a positive plus a positive equals a positive. We know a negative plus a negative is a negative. Okay, so if we're adding numbers with the same sign, we have to figure out what sign it is, and then our answer will be that sign. So let's take a moment and work with adding integers with the same sign. So first, I encourage you to always rewrite the problem on a separate sheet of paper so you can figure out signs and stuff like that. You have extra room for work. So, for example, we have 3 plus 3. Well, you've been adding positive integers for forever now. We know that 3 plus 3 is 6. We don't need any integer rules to tell us that. But let's see how the integer rules apply. You have a positive 3 and a positive 3. So those are two numbers, two integers with the same sign. So a positive plus a positive will be a positive 6. Okay? 7 plus 8. This is a positive 7. This is a positive 8. That's a positive plus a positive. Well, 7 plus 8 we know is 15. Okay? We could do 7 plus 8 in our head without even thinking of the integer rules. Okay? But when we apply the integer rules, we see we have a positive plus a positive, which will give us a positive answer. So now, some that you might not have seen. You have a negative 6 plus a negative 2. So I'm looking and I have a negative number plus a negative number. Well, in our rules, it says a negative plus a negative will equal a negative. So they have the same signs. They're both negative. So my ending number is going to be a negative. But to find it, we add. So 6 plus 2 would be 8. We're dealing with negative 6 and negative 2, so it's going to be a negative 8. Same with the next one. We have a negative 10 and a negative 12. We're adding those together. Therefore, that's going to give us 10 plus 12, which is 22. Since we're dealing with negative numbers, it's going to be a negative 22. So when we're adding the same signs, we add and simply just keep the signs. So that brings us to adding integers with different signs. So when we have different signs, we have to subtract and keep the sign of the bigger number. Okay? So when we're adding integers, during the process, we are going to have to subtract. Okay? So the first things first, look at our numbers. See if we have positive and negatives or if the signs are even different. So for example, 10 plus negative 3. The first thing I'm going to do is label my signs. I have a positive 10 and I have a negative 3. Yes, I have different signs. I have a positive and I have a negative. Therefore, I need to first subtract. So my first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pretend that these are both positive at this point. I'm going to take the absolute value of each of them. So the absolute value of 10 would be 10. And I'm going to subtract it from the absolute value of negative 3, which would be 3. Well, 10 minus 3 will give us 7. But we're not done, because once we subtract, we have to keep the sign of the bigger number. Well, when we subtract big minus small. Therefore, 10 is our bigger number. And if we look back to the original problem, we see 10 is a positive number. Therefore, my answer is going to be a positive 7. Okay, on to the next one. We have a 2 plus negative 4. Well, this is a positive 2 and a negative 4. Those are different signs. So our first step is to subtract. So I forget about the signs for a second and just look at the number as a whole. So a 4 and a 2. So I subtract 4 minus 2, which will give me 2. Well, then, I'm not done yet. I have to take the sign of the larger number. The larger number is 4. Therefore, I look back up here, and 4 is a negative number. Therefore, my answer is going to be a negative 2. Negative 8 plus 12. Well, once again, I have a negative, and I have a positive number. Those are different signs. So the first thing I do is subtract. I subtract big number minus smaller number. 12 minus 8, which is 4. As we can see, 12 is our larger number. Therefore, I look back at the original problem. 12 is a positive number. So my answer is going to be a positive 4. Okay, one more example. We have a negative 16, we have a positive 4. We have a negative and a positive. We have different signs. So I'm going to subtract 16 minus 4 and get 12. I look back up to the original problem. The larger number is 16. 16 is a negative, so it'll be negative 12. Okay, so that's adding integers. And adding integers is the foundation, especially because subtracting integers, we're going to have to go back and add integers. And that's what we're going to talk about next. So subtracting integers. When you see you are working with a problem that deals with subtraction, so that has a minus sign between the two integers, you have to do a couple things. We don't subtract integers. We simply must change the signs, which means we're adding the opposite. Okay? That's where we get keep the sign of the first number, so keep the first number the same. Change subtraction sign to addition, then change the sign of the second number to its opposite. So if we're dealing with a positive number, we're going to change it to a negative number. If we're dealing with a negative number, we're going to change it to the positive number. So for example, we have 5 minus 2. Well, guys, I know that you guys are capable of doing 5 minus 2. We know 5 minus 2 is 3. Okay? We didn't need any rules to figure that out, but sometimes we will. So just to do our rules, the keep, change, then we have to use our adding rule. Watch how I go about this problem. I keep the first number the same, so that stays as a 5. I change it to addition. That's 5 minus 2. Okay? Minus 2. We said 2, so I need the opposite of 2, which is negative 2. Okay? So now we have our addition problem. What we're trying to get to, because we don't subtract. Now we use our adding rules. So what we just talked about were the adding rules. This has a positive 5 and a negative 2. Those are different signs. So different signs we subtract. So we would do 5 minus 2 and get 3. Well, 5 is the larger number. I go back up and look at the addition problem we just made, and we saw 5 was a positive number. Therefore, my answer is going to be a positive 3, just like we said earlier. Let's try it again. Negative 3 minus 2. Well, this is a negative 3. So we keep that the same. Negative 3. We change subtraction to addition, and then that's negative 3 minus 2. Okay? So I said it out loud. I said minus 2. So the opposite of 2 is negative 2. So really, we're just doing negative 3 plus negative 2. Well, this is the new addition problem that we made. That's what we want. Therefore, we have a negative plus a negative. Those are same signs. So I add and keep the sign. So our answer is negative 5. 8 minus negative 4. So I see we're subtracting, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the first number the same. I'm going to change it to addition. The opposite of negative 4 is positive 4. So really, guys, this is our new problem we're working with, 8 plus 4. Well, we all know 8 plus 4, same signs. We add and keep the sign. So we get 12. Negative 6 minus 9. Okay, we're subtracting, so I have to keep the first number, change it to addition, change it to the opposite, which is a positive 9. So now I have a negative and I have a positive number. Therefore, I have different signs. So different signs I need to subtract. So I do big number minus small number, and I get 3. 9 is the larger number. Okay, so I'm going to take the sign of that number, which I look back up to our new addition problem we just made, and I see 9's a positive number. So my answer is going to be a positive 3. And then last, we have negative 12 minus 7. So we keep the first number, change it to addition. We said minus 7. Therefore, the opposite of 7 would be negative 7. So now we use our adding rules. We have a negative and a negative. We're adding two negatives. Therefore, my answer, same signs, add. So 12 plus 7 is 19. And I keep the sign of the negative. So that's subtracting integers. Remember, you have to keep the first number the same, change subtraction to addition, change the sign of the second number to the opposite. Last, I'll talk about multiplying and dividing integers. Okay? These are the same rules, okay? So if you know how to do the rules for multiplying, they're the same for dividing, okay? Same signs, your answer will be positive. Different signs, your answer will be negative. That's for both multiplying and dividing, okay? So you multiply like normal, and you divide like normal. So for example, this is 5 times 6. Well, we know 5 times 6 is 30. That's a positive times a positive. So my answer is going to be a positive. Same for dividing. 24 divided by 6. Well, we know 24 divided by 6 is 4. This is a positive. This is also a positive. A positive and a positive gives us a positive. Now we have negative 2 times negative 8. So we have a negative times a negative. That's going to give me a positive number because a negative and negative, those are the same signs. So I just do 2 times 8, which is 16, and it's positive 16. Same with dividing. I have a negative, I have a negative. I have 2 negatives. Therefore, I have the same sign. Since I have the same sign, my answer will be a positive. So negative 90 divided by negative 10 will ultimately be positive 9. Say we have 7 times negative 2. We have a positive and we have a negative, okay? When we have different signs, our answer is going to be a negative, okay? So first, I just do 7 times 2 like normal, which is 14. I have a positive times a negative, so my answer is going to be a negative. And so for the last question, we have negative 27 divided by 27. Therefore, we have a negative divided by a positive, okay? So we have different signs. Therefore, I automatically know I'm going to have a negative answer. Well, 27 divided by 27 will be 1. So I know my answer is negative 1. Being successful at adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing integers stems off of knowing your rules. If you do not know your rules for each one, I highly suggest you look at the integers cheat sheet that was given to you in class, or you can find it on the Canvas page for today. And I highly, highly, highly recommend you study that. And you go through some examples on the study guide and try to figure out if you can get those right. I hope this video helped.